Picture this. You're sitting in your kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at six numbers that just changed your life forever. $48 million. But instead of celebrating, instead of calling your family, you make the coldest decision of your life. Complete silence. And then you decide to test them. You tell them you're broke, desperate, and need their help. The results? They'll shatter everything you thought you knew about family love. Trust me, what happened next will make you question everyone in your own life. My name is William Thompson. I'm 65 years old, and 3 weeks ago, those six blinking numbers on my lottery ticket made me richer than I'd ever imagined. But as I sat in my quiet kitchen that night, bourbon in hand, one thought cut through the euphoria like ice water. If they knew about this money, who would love me and who would love what I could give them? You see, for 40 years, I've been the family ATM. My son Tyler calls when his startup needs funding. My daughter Iona appears when her mortgage payment's due. My brother Casimir, well, he's perfected the art of borrowing without returning. And each time they promise it's temporary, that family helps family. But I've learned something bitter about family. When you're always giving, you never really know who's taking out of love and who's taking out of habit. So here's what I did. And this is the part that's going to shock you. Before I claimed that $48 million, before I spent a single dollar, I decided to run an experiment. I created a story, a lie, if you will. I told each of them I was facing financial ruin, that I'd lost money in bad investments, that the bank was threatening to foreclose on my house. Then I asked for help. Not much, just $6,000. For Tyler, with his Tesla and his tech company, that's pocket change. For Iona, married to a surgeon, it's less than their monthly wine budget. For Casimir, it's less than he already owes me. But here's the crucial question that kept me awake for weeks. When the man who'd always been their safety net needed saving, who would catch him when he fell? The answer nearly destroyed me. Let me take you back to the beginning. The night I bought that ticket, I wasn't even trying to win. I'd stopped at Murphy's Corner Store for milk and bread, the kind of routine grocery run I'd done 1,000 times since my wife passed 2 years ago. The lottery machine was right there by the register, and old Murphy said, "Come on, Bill, live a little. When's the last time you took a real chance?" So I bought one ticket. Quick pick, 6 random numbers that would change everything. That night, I sat in the same chair where Margaret used to read her books, watching the drawing on TV. The first number matched, then the second. By the fourth number, my hands were shaking. When all 6 numbers aligned perfectly with my ticket, I just stared at the screen in disbelief. $48 million. I should have been ecstatic. I should have called everyone I knew. Instead, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and started thinking about every time I'd rescued my family from their financial mistakes. Tyler's failed restaurant venture, $15,000. Iona's emergency roof repair that turned into a full renovation, $22,000. Casimir's gambling debts, his failed business schemes, his ex-wife's legal fees. I'd lost count somewhere around $50,000. And yet when Margaret was sick, when the medical bills were drowning us both, where were they? Tyler was between funding rounds. Iona was renovating the kitchen. Casimir was waiting for a big deal to close. Only my elderly Aunt Junia, living on Social Security, quietly slipped me $300 with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I wish it could be more, Billy." That memory burned as I sat there with the winning ticket. These people who called me family, who appeared like clockwork whenever they needed something, would any of them show up when I needed them? I made my decision that night. I would test them. Create a crisis, see who would stand by William Thompson, the man, not William Thompson, the wallet. What I discovered over the next 2 weeks didn't just break my heart, it opened my eyes to a truth so ugly I almost couldn't bear to see it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you exactly how this test unfolded and why the results changed not just my family, but the entire direction of my life. Because when you strip away the money, the favors, the safety net you had provided for decades, you don't just see who your family really is, you see who you've allowed yourself to become.
The morning after I decided to test my family, I woke up with a knot in my stomach that felt like swallowing broken glass. I'd spent 40 years building relationships I thought were based on love, and I was about to find out they might have been built on something much more fragile: convenience. I started with Tyler, my son, 38 years old, driving a Tesla, living in a downtown loft that costs more per month than most people make in a year. I called him on a Tuesday morning, letting my voice crack just enough to sound genuinely worried. "Tyler, I need to tell you something, and it's not easy to say." "Dad, what's wrong? You sound terrible." I let the silence hang for a moment, a technique I'd learned from years of listening to their excuses. "I made some bad investment choices. The financial advisor I trusted, he lost most of my savings. The bank is calling about the house payment. I'm short about $6,000. The pause that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. I counted them. In that silence, I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the mental calculation of inconvenience versus obligation. "Dad, that's really tough, but 6,000. I mean, the startup is at a critical stage right now. We're about to close Series B funding, and every dollar is allocated. Maybe you could refinance or get a reverse mortgage." Solutions that didn't involve him. Suggestions that would push the problem away from his doorstep. This from the same man who'd called me at midnight 2 years ago, panicking about payroll, begging for $15,000 to save the company. "Tyler, I helped you when no bank would even look at your business plan. And I appreciate that, Dad, I really do. But this is different. You're talking about personal debt. That's on you to figure out." Personal debt. As if the money I'd given him had been a business transaction, not a father believing in his son's dreams. I thanked him quietly and hung up. Then I wrote his response in a notebook I'd started keeping. "Tyler, suggestions, no solutions. Inconvenience over family." Next came Iona, my daughter, 35, married to Dr. Richard Miller, living in a house that could fit 3 of mine inside it. They'd just returned from a wine tour in Tuscany. I'd seen the photos on Facebook, hundreds of dollars worth of bottles in their luggage. "Daddy, you sound stressed. What's happening?" I told her the same story. Lost investments, bank threats, $6,000 standing between me and losing the house where she'd grown up, where her mother had died, where every family memory lived. "Oh, Daddy, that's awful. I can't believe someone would take advantage of you like that." Her voice was soft, sympathetic, the tone she used when she wanted to sound caring without committing to action. "6,000 is a lot, though, Daddy. Richard just paid our property taxes, and we've got the kids' private school tuition coming up. Maybe we could help with a smaller amount, like maybe 1,000? $1,000 from a woman whose husband makes that much in half a day of surgery, whose wine cellar probably cost more than my entire monthly budget. "Iona, when you needed money for the roof repair that turned into a full renovation, I didn't negotiate you down to a smaller amount. That was different, Daddy. That was an emergency. And this isn't?" Another pause, another mental calculation. "Let me talk to Richard. Maybe we can figure something out for next month." Next month. When someone's house is being threatened with foreclosure, next month might as well be next century. I wrote in my notebook, "Iona, sympathy without sacrifice, promises without commitment."
But it was my brother Casimir who truly showed me the depth of the rot in my family tree. 62 years old, he'd been borrowing from me since we were teenagers. Everything from lunch money to legal fees, from business investments to gambling debts. I'd estimate he owed me close to $60,000 over the years, not counting interest or inflation. "Billy, what's eating you? You sound like someone died." I told him the story, the lost investments, the bank, the $6,000. And Casimir laughed, actually laughed. Well, look who's finally learning what the rest of us have known all along. Life's a gamble, and sometimes you lose. Join the club, brother." "Casimir, I'm asking for help." And I'm broke, Billy. Broker than broke. Hell, I was going to call you this week to see if you could spot me a few hundred for rent. Looks like we're both up the creek without a paddle. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. No concern for my situation, no acknowledgement of the decades I'd spent pulling him out of financial holes, just amusement that his older brother had finally fallen as far as he had. So that's it. After everything I've done for you. Hey, don't get all emotional on me. You'll figure it out. You always do. You're the responsible one, remember? The responsible one. The reliable one. The one who cleans up everyone else's messes while they live their lives free from consequences. I hung up and stared at my notebook. 3 calls, 3 failures. But I wasn't done testing yet. There was still one more name on my list. The one person I both hoped and feared would prove me wrong about everything. Because if Aren't You Mia failed this test too, I would know that the concept of family love was nothing but a beautiful lie I'd been telling myself for 65 years. The call to Aunt Unia was the hardest one to make. At 72, she lived in a tiny apartment on the east side of town, surviving on Social Security and the small pension from her 40 years as a school librarian. If anyone had a legitimate excuse to say no, it was her. But if anyone would find a way to say yes, it would be her too. And that terrified me. My finger hovered over her number for 20 minutes. Part of me didn't want to test her because I knew she'd pass, and that would make everyone else's failure even more devastating. But I had to know. I had to complete the picture. "Billy, how wonderful to hear from you. How are you holding up?" She asked about my health, my eating habits, whether I was getting enough sleep. 3 minutes of genuine concern for my well-being before I could even mention why I'd called. When was the last time any of my children had asked if I was eating properly? "Aren't you Nia? I'm in trouble." Her tone changed instantly, not to calculation or hesitation, but to fierce protectiveness. "What kind of trouble? Are you hurt? Sick?" I told her the story. By the time she finished, I could hear her moving around her apartment, and I knew exactly what she was doing. She was already looking for her checkbook. 6,000, you said. Her voice was steady, determined. "I don't have 6,000, Billy, but I've got about 3,200 in my savings account. That's everything I have for emergencies, but you are my emergency. Family takes care of family." I had to cover the phone because I started crying. Here was a woman who clipped coupons to afford groceries, who bought her clothes at thrift stores, who hadn't taken a vacation in 15 years, offering me everything she had without a moment's hesitation. "Aunt Unia, I can't take your savings." "William Thompson, don't you dare tell me what I can and can't do with my own money. You've been taking care of this family since you were 18 years old. It's time someone took care of you." That's when I knew I had to stop the test. Not because I'd learned what I needed to know, but because I couldn't bear to take money from the one person who actually loved me. "Aunt Unia, can I tell you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "I haven't lost any money. I made up the whole story to test everyone, to see who would help if I really needed it." Silence. Then quietly, "And?" "You're the only one who passed." Another pause. "That doesn't surprise me, Billy. It should disappoint you, but it shouldn't surprise you."
2 weeks later, I invited everyone to my house for Sunday dinner. Tyler, Iona, Casimir, even Richard came, probably expecting free food and football on TV. Only Aunt Junia knew what was coming. I served Margaret's pot roast recipe, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving, and made small talk through dinner. They seemed relieved that I wasn't bringing up my financial problems again. Tyler talked about his funding round. Iona described their plans for a kitchen renovation. Casimir told stories about his latest get-rich-quick scheme. When dessert was finished, I stood up and placed a small device on the table. "I want to play something for you," I said, pressing the record button. And then I played back their voices. Tyler's excuses, Iona's hollow promises, Casimir's laughter. Every word, every pause, every moment where family love should have been, but wasn't. The room went silent except for their own voices echoing back at them. When the recordings ended, I placed a lottery ticket on the table. The winning lottery ticket. $48 million, I said quietly. I won it 3 weeks ago, the same week I called you all asking for help. Tyler's face went white. Iona started crying. Casimir just stared at the ticket like it was a snake. Dad, if we'd known, Tyler started, if you'd have known, you would have helped. Yes, I understand that. But the question isn't what you would have done if you knew I was rich. The question is what you did when you thought I was poor. I pulled out a manila envelope and placed it next to the lottery ticket. I've already claimed the prize. I've already spoken to lawyers. You'll be interested to know that Aunt Junia is now my sole heir. She offered me everything she had when she thought I had nothing. The rest will go to charity, the children's hospital where Margaret volunteered, the literacy program Aunt Junia supported for 40 years. The silence was deafening. Dad, you can't be serious, Iona whispered. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Tyler stood up, his face red with anger. This is insane. We're your children. Yes, you are. And for 40 years, I taught you that love comes with a price tag. I taught you that family means taking without giving back. I created the monsters you became, and now I'm taking responsibility for that mistake. I looked at each of them, really looked at them, and saw them clearly for the first time in decades. You have 30 days to prove me wrong. Show me that you can love someone who can't give you anything. Show me that family means more than money. But don't show me with words. I've heard enough of those. Show me with actions. None of them took the challenge. They all left that night, and I haven't heard from them since. Except for Aunt Junia, who still calls every Sunday to make sure I'm eating properly and getting enough sleep. Some people would say I destroyed my family over money, but I didn't destroy anything. I just finally saw clearly what was already broken. And for the first time in 40 years, I'm free. So here's my question for you. If you tested your family the way I tested mine, what do you think you'd discover? Have you ever questioned whether the people closest to you love you for who you are or for what you can provide? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as eye-opening as I hope you did, please give it a like and subscribe to Hidden Hearth for more stories that reveal the hidden truths about family, love, and human nature. Remember, the most powerful revelations often come from the people we think we know best. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.